that being said, let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with your name and the medium you're working in.
My name is Chris Bell, and for the pieces for the Kaleidoscope show, I used acrylic.
My name is Bridget Bossart van Otterloo, and for this series of mosaics, I am working with oil paint, and some of them have metal leaf as well.
I'm Rebecca Finch, and I work in oils.
Lisa Gillis, and I actually work in many different mediums. It depends what the preferred outcome is, what I'm working on. For the pieces I'm creating for Mosaic this year, I like to create with a medium called acrylic gouache.
Annemiek Haralson. I mainly work in oil. I used watercolors for most of my life and pen and ink drawings. And so the pen and ink is actually what I did for the mosaic.
Brud Holland, wood.
My name is Rob Houghton. About 10 years ago, I said if I'm ever going to do this art business with some seriousness, I better go do it. So I've been doing it forever, but I'm a photographer.
Ievers, and I work in oil.
Hey, I'm Filomena Jack, and I am using acrylics.
Hi there, my name's Christina Johnson, and I love to work with oil paint.
I'm Martha MANIKAS-FOSTER, and I work with ceramics, both thrown pottery and hand-built ceramics, and I enjoy specifically surface decoration once I've created a vessel.
My name is Becky McNeil, and I am a modern quilt artist.
Mark Rubin, my preferred medium is oil painting.
My name is Michael Sampson. I am primarily an oil painter, but occasionally other mediums.
Jill Schiller, work in, well, for the mosaic I did acrylic paint, but I like pen and ink and to do pattern work.
Hi everyone, I'm Ivy STEVENS-GUPTA. I am a contemporary painter from Ithaca, New York. My medium of choice is typically acrylic on canvas or birch board, but sometimes I'll use oil, I'll use ink, wax pastels, pencils, iridescent overlays, gold or silver leaf. But the one unique thing about my art is I typically will seal my paintings in an epoxy high gloss resin.
My name is Chris Walters, and I am a photographer, so I work in photography.
My name is Amanda Warren, and I am a clay artist.
For the mosaic exhibit, can you tell us a little bit about the theme or inspiration behind that?
This is an interesting shop we ran into. We were traveling years ago, and we came upon a shop that had a lot of taxidermy animals and things. We saw a lot of different moths and butterflies, and using a small medium, it reminded me of something that we had bought when we were at the shop, and I thought it would be really fun to take something that generally isn't the most beautiful thing, like a moth, and paint it and really showcase the colors and some of the textures you would see.
The inspiration behind that, I have always been attracted to the natural world, and flowers are my favorite subjects to paint. So it was easy decision for me this year to paint the flowers. I thought about what do I want to do 16 times, and flowers are my favorite subject. So that's the inspiration. I have one here to show you. This is a sunflower that came from Wegmans. I like to paint from life a lot too. So I usually paint something from my garden or something that I pick up at a local place.
Well, I wanted to paint skeleton keys. So the object came before the meaning behind them. Keys unlock things. We won't talk about the fact that they lock things up, but we'll release them. And I was thinking of all the things that we can be released to, and the good things that we have freedoms to do and enjoy. And it kind of, the backdrop for this is of course everything we're going through right now. We feel a little restricted, we have to be careful, there's anxiety, there's fear, there's a lot of hurt and pain and loss. And I just wanted to highlight what we do have and the good things that we have. Each painting shows a skeleton key, and I've tried to arrange them in such a way that it can remind us of something that we have. There's one called Keep Dreaming, and there's clouds, and it's a blue background, and things that we can keep learning and growing. We can choose to love people. We can choose to explore, and there's lots of other things, but that's the meaning behind all the paintings.
Nature is definitely a big inspiration for me with these graphic designs. You can see behind me the series that I've created for Mosaic this year is in two different designs, just like I did last year, if you remember what I did last year at all. So I took two of my graphic designs. This one is called Chicory Days, because one of the main elements is chicory flowers, I call them. Most people call them wildflowers or weeds. And the other one is called In the Ginkgo Garden, which I was inspired to create after walking around my neighborhood and collecting ginkgo leaves. And so I take the larger designs and then I pull smaller images out of the larger designs that stand on their own. So it's really fun imagining the entire design and then to reimagine it as smaller bits, smaller compositions. They really draw your eye in and help you to see all the fun little details that are around you all the time.
So they're all pen and ink drawings of trees or parts of trees, branches and roots. So the textures of trees and just looking at trees, again, the hikes that I take really have inspired this. Trees just have their own story and they each have their own personality. I think it's just, I'm just fascinated by those kind of, by the textures. And if I can show you one. So can you see? Thinking about what that tree has gone through, it's growing on these rocks, and these roots are going this way and that way, and maybe it's been through a flood and it's had its own life. So that's been my inspiration for this series.
Yeah, so again, I went with the surprise box theme. This year, I made the boxes a lot different, using some more organic materials from the vineyard and an apple orchard. This year's boxes, you can kind of see into the box, but I've made it so that you can't really tell what's in the box. So I like to say that someone who wants to purchase one of the boxes is going to kind of look at the box and buy the box for how it looks and how they sort of connect with it. And I just love the idea of there being the surprise inside, like not knowing what else you're going to get in addition to just buying the box.
One of my series, which this series is part of, is getting really up close to things and seeing the things that normally you wouldn't if you didn't get up close. So this, as I said earlier, I have a huge garden. My wife and I grow not all, but a lot of the food that we eat for the way we put it up for the rest of the year. Some of these vegetables and fruits are just gorgeous. I put them on black velvet, which prevents the light sheen from happening. And then I photographed them. So this particular series I always did in either partners or there's one of them that's a threesome. And I call it my loving vegetable series just because they're sort of close to one another and anthropomorphic a little bit. I guess you can read into that if you want. But it's just, again, taking a look at things that you normally, and shapes and all of that, and colors that you normally would not see at the grocery store or pay attention to, and now you're paying more attention to it.
I love this event each year. I love it so much. And each year I try to challenge myself a little bit more. So as you can see through my studio, I'm definitely a colorist. I use all of the crayons in the box, not the gray ones. Those kind of go away. But I wanted to challenge myself this year to use a more simplified palette, simplified for me. So I've limited myself to about 4 colors plus some things for shading. And I love candy. I love candy a lot, but I'm doing my best to take some of the unnatural sugars out of my world. So in my coffee cup, there is no sugar. So I thought, well, if I can paint candy. So I've decided to paint lollipops this year. and paint them only in a few colors, like I said.
For the particular format I picked, there's 10 paintings, and the theme I had was the sum of its parts. I divided the 10 into 2 groups of 5, 1 large and 4 small paintings each. One is a set of landscapes, the other is still lifes. For the landscape, the large painting is the landscape, the 4 small ones are the 4 quadrants within the landscape. For still life, there are 4 objects in the still life, and the 4 small paintings are each of the individual objects.
I traditionally work with food. I see food as a gateway to memory. We gather around food for better and sometimes for worse. And there can be real stories. We gather around the table, we have laughter, we have sadness. And so a lot of the setups have a little bit of a narrative quality behind them. This is called Annual Wisdom Check-In, so it's a little birthday cupcake. But some of them are maybe a little bit heavier and some of them are more joyful. So they're about everyday life.
I usually work in monochromatic themes, and I had decided when I submitted for Mosaic that I was going to go a little more bright. It was wintertime, and I was thinking, what could I use like for myself to feel cheerful through the winter? And I had no idea that I would be doing this creative process through this unusual time that we've been living through, when bright color and the idea of flowers even before they were blooming would be an encouragement to me, and I hope it's an encouragement to other people. So I went from black and white for the previous Mosaic that I was in, and I started using other colors. So this is one of the examples of what is part of Mosaic. Again, the process is to put a color on top of the clay. This is porcelain, and every time I carve, I reveal that white. So it's as much of a contrast as you make it while you're carving. So it's, like I said, it's both it's a creative process. It's also a little bit of a puzzle as I go along. So there are different vessels that are in turquoise and in yellow. And then I also have part of my exhibit in black and in red. So, but always there's another color always present, which is the clay underneath, which is the white in this case.
Yes, I actually read an essay titled The Enchanted Woods, which was written by Vernon Lee, which is actually a pen name for Violet Paget. She was a British writer. And in that essay, she describes in really rich and vivid detail what she calls the magic of the enchanted woods. And she pretty much convinces the reader that you could only find this type of magic in a fairy tale. And just as she has you convinced of that, she reveals that in truth, in her opinion, the only way to truly find this magic is to open your eyes to what is right outside your very own door. So she urges us to stop yearning to travel to far-flung places and to just look at what's right around us. So that message really spoke to me long before the pandemic was even a blip on our radar. But then as we began to spend more and more time within our own homes, it seemed even more important to me that we learn to give as much reverence to a walk around the block as we would to a stroll along the banks of some foreign river. And only when we learn to do that would we be able to find the beauty and the magic and the happiness in our everyday lives that we tend to find when we're on our once-a-year vacation.
Well, the doodles, these are all doodles I put in this particular show, and they're all out of my head. I draw them on they're digital drawings, but they're done as analog as I can be on an iPad. I use a pencil, and I use a 6B pencil and a textured paper. And they're all out of my head. There's not anything in front of me when I'm doing them. So I call them random thoughts because that's really what they are. I mean, this particular year I didn't put a lot of political stuff in because it's just too much fodder, so I just wanted to stay back off of that. So I try to make some of them fun. I have a new grandson named Jack. He's about 2 years old. So some things in there that are inspired by just the fact that he's on this earth. There's other ones there that are inspired by, I could look at something and go for a walk and something will catch my eye and then it'll be a doodle. Or I'll just start moving the pad around and moving the pencil around, and I start to see something, and then that something turns into something. Then I'll look at it for a while, and I'll come back to it and visit it again, and all of a sudden it's called peeling an onion. It just kind of evolves into an idea. So I'm inspired by life in every aspect, whether I'm looking up, down, or around, reading, television, watching people, being in class.
The inspiration for the series for the Mosaic exhibit was working from the figure. Even though I'm an abstract painter, I work from live models, not many nowadays. So most of the works were drawn directly from a live model and then abstracted, and a few were done on Zoom modeling sessions.
Well, I have been working on some color wheel series of my own. And so I kind of expanded this. I took a design. I knew I wanted to do the 4 panels. So I took a design I could divide easily into 4 and then further divided them based on color. So there's 8 color sections once the tiles are all put together. And then for this one, to make the design part stand out and also kind of tie it together, the lines of the designs are in grays so that that's all the same throughout the 4 pieces.
So this is actually my 3rd year participating in the 171 Cedar Arts Mosaic fundraiser. My paintings were inspired by my love for color and abstract designs. I am completing this year 16 6-inch by 6-inch by 1.7-inch paintings. And you can see here a sample of one of them. They're kind of chunky. They're on a birch board canvas, kind of neat looking. I am one of those people who loves to be outside, and I can be fascinated by the intricacies of a leaf that's fallen. And then what I do is I try to incorporate that into my art. You're probably wondering why abstract art. When I was younger and originally went to college for art, Mitchell, if I was doing a painting of you, I would try to make it as photorealistic as possible. But then as I got older, I learned that creating abstract art was much more expressive for me. And I found that I was leaning more towards the perfect imperfections that you find in life.
The big inspiration is one that for me, like I said, I have this different background. I think I'm not originally from the Corning area. All my work is featuring Corning shots. But I lived overseas for a number of years. I've traveled to like 40 different countries. I grew up military, so grew up all over the country. So seeing the world from a different perspective, I think, is something that has just been part of my life and part of my upbringing. And to come here as an outsider, and I think getting to see Corning from a different perspective, especially through my photography, it's something I like to share. And so for my exhibit, it's all going to be featured work from Corning. It's all in black and white, which I think is a nice kind of format sometimes I work in. So it's nice to share that. And then, a lot of the shots are with wide angle lenses, even though it's a square format. So I crop down to fit the format of Mosaic, but it's still these kind of big shots that, you might not necessarily see just walking by. And so I hope giving the city a different perspective than people are used to. And, if you ever drive them over the bridge and they see a strange person in muck boots down by the river and a tripod, that's probably me. So it's nice to share some of those photos with everybody.
So I've participated in each mosaic that we've had, and all but one of my installations for Mosaic have been focused on letters and how to display them in clay. So this year, my installation was based off of an idea that was going to actually be installed at the Rockwell's Art Lab. And because of how things progressed this year, that show didn't happen, but I still had all of this work and all of these ideas to work through. So for Mosaic, I kind of pivoted and used the same thought process and ideas for that show, for the Mosaic show. And it's this whole convoluted process of designing letters online using software, printing them out using a Cricut machine to create a template to then cut out in clay. And then the whole impetus for that show that I was going to have at the Rockwell was for things to be interactive. Now, in a time when we're not really supposed to be touching things, seems like a perfect opportunity to make an installation where people are going to touch things. But I can demonstrate how all of my letter forms will be movable, and you can kind of spin them and get this kind of kaleidoscope effect with a stationary design on the back and then this mobile design on the front, and this is the part that's made out of clay. So I am obsessed with letters because I keep coming back to them, and the font that I tend to be drawn to is Helvetica specifically. So the whole iterations of my pieces, especially the ones that have been in Mosaic, I call Klayvetica. So this is the 4th generation of Klayvetica, and I'm calling it to the letter or by the letter. I haven't decided yet, but